شكرا جزيلا مثلي. في فرصة لو في أي شخص عنده سؤال ممكن يسأله في هذه اللحظة أو أي أسئلة.
Oh, really? The lawyer. Yeah, she's a lawyer. So you're working on, court case for Darfur victims. So can this be instead of, targeting specific named victims? Can we target the community, as like if we can get funds to rebuild and relocate people back to their homes and villages? Can that be done?
That's a very good question. So our lawsuit is for individual people here in the United States that fled the violence. As a lawyer, I am not in Sudan and I can't represent people that I haven't met. So I have representative clients here that give me authority and I speak for them on their voice. However, they do represent the community of people like them who fled the similar circumstances. It's called a class action. You might have heard of it. So I listen to my clients, one being Fatima Abdurrahman and others. I have 21. We try to get individuals that represent all communities in Sudan and South Sudan, Nuba Mountains, the West, the South, Juba, Khartoum, Darfur. So we try to get a representative and they represent. But it's a good question about the people back home. So each person has their own claim for their own injuries. But in class actions, many times there's a fund of money, God willing, if we win the case. And that fund can be billions of dollars because there's so much injury. And organizations that are legitimate organizations, like we've heard about here today, from these two ladies that work with communities for Sudan and also back in Sudan, they are able to apply for funding, for education funds, for even, for example, there's lost boy organizations that might not fit within the time frame of the when the bank was committing crimes, but they would be affected Sudanese community members that could apply for funding that could then go and do development in Sudan, that kind of thing. So, and that's something that my clients consider very important. So I'm working for that. Again, I take instruction from the victims. It's not my case, it's your case. So I listen to what they want. So we are working to try to get communities, groups, and advocacy groups that can then use that fund to perpetuate change in Sudan, because that's one of the goals that my clients care about.
Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers that we had today. Thank you so much. Thank you again. We're going to continue with our first discussions. Our speakers are going to be Mr. Luqman. نقدم إليكم الندوة الأولى وهي بعنوان ماذا حدث في دارفور وكيف حدث وما هو المخرج. يقدمها الأستاذ أحمد محمود.
بعض المفكرين بيتكلموا أن الإنسان ممكن يكون أدنى من درجة الحيوان وممكن يكون أعلى من درجة الملائكة. ولما نطرح السؤال كيف يكون أن الإنسان ممكن يتدنى ويكون أقل من درجة الحيوان، لأنه في التاريخ بتاع الحيوان لم نسمع ولم نقرأ أن في فصيلة من الحيوانات أبادت فصيلة أخرى عشان تعيش في مكان محدد. لكن في تاريخ الإنسان حدث هذا، أنه الإنسان أباد أقوى الإنسان عشان يحتل المكان ويحتل الأرض، وكذلك الإنسان يصعد عشان يكون بدلا من الملائكة من خلال الانتباه لذاته ومن خلال الانتباه للآخر والوعي بالآخر والتعامل معه من خلال وعي داخلي إنساني يسمو الإنسان حتى يرتقي إلى جنة الملائكة. ما حدث في دارفور هو تدني بدرجة الإنسان إلى أقل من درجة الحيوان، لأنه عندما تحدث الإبادة وعندما يحدث القتل للآخر في هذه الحالة يتساوى القائم بالفعل مع الحيوان وأدنى من درجة الحيوان. ما نسعى له نحن كسودانيين أن نرتقي إلى مستوى الإنسانية بوعي جديد وبشكل جديد. أنا في هذه اللحظة بحيي الجمعية السودانية أن انتبهت لقضية معقدة وشائكة هي قضية دارفور، ونأمل أن هذا المنوال ينتشر في كل الولايات وداخل السودان عشان نبني سودان جديد من خلال وعي جديد، ووعي من خلال يعني فهم الإنسان ومعاناته. يعني أهل دارفور عانوا كثيرا، ونحن يفترض أن نقف مع أهل دارفور ومع كل الأقاليم العامة. عنوان الندوة حيكون ماذا حدث وكيف حدث وما هو المخرج. يعني وده يعني ده سؤال كبير. يعني ما حدث كان شيء فظيع. نحن بنحاول من خلال هذه الندوة أن نتلمس جزء مما حدث، لأنه لا نستطيع في ندوة أن نصل إلى ما حدث لأنه هو عميق وجذري، لأنه مرتبط بالإنسان. ولما تكون في دماغ في منطقة ما، مهما كان الحديث ومهما كان الكلام لا نستطيع أن نوصف الحالة الحصرة، لأنه حالة إنسانية مربوطة بتراجيديا الإنسان. أنا في البداية أقدم الأستاذ لقمان هرجة، هو أستاذ جامعي في جامعة بيركلي ومعماري ومهندس. أقدم لكم هو من أبناء دارفور عشان يضع النقاط على الحروف، لأنهم هم أهل الوجهة يحدثون من منطق ذاتي وإنساني ومن منطق سوداني عام ومن منطق دارفور نفسها. تفضل لقمان.
Good afternoon, everybody, and assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to talk to you about my thesis about Darfur crisis of conscience, in which I would talk a little bit about the experience of someone who actually grew up in the region and witnessed what has happened. And then I would also talk about the theme of the crisis of the conscious, and I'll conclude my remarks by offering some thoughts on how we can go from here. Then I will also be joined by two of my friends who share the stage with me, so I would like to keep it very short, and then we can take some questions during the Q&A session. Well, it's so sad and difficult and frustrating to come here in 2020 to talk about this tragedy, actually. To talk about what it means to be a human, to talk about what it means to have a conscience. As the world has come so far in many disciplines, scientifically, technologically, and medically and otherwise. However, it's always a question of who we are as a human. Prepared to actually say or to put a little bit my frustration of how the world let that genocide happen in the region, However, there's always better angels. As much as we think that we have profound evil nature in our side as human, there's also some profound, really good people. And I was proven also wrong because you have seen these incredible individuals who have related themselves to the people on the ground, to people, to their suffering, to their pain, and advocate for their cause. And we've seen this incredible, actually, movement and mobilization that took place here in the United States. This always restores the fact that there's always people out there who actually do good, and we cannot do more. We cannot express our deep appreciation and gratitude. So thank you all. Thank you for the panel who was before us for their incredible support to the people of Darfur and to the people of Sudan in general. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Darfur, in a small town or village called Dar es Salaam or Katal. Many of you here knows that place. It is 20 miles south of Al-Fashir, and it's a home to about 10,000 people. Between 2004 all the way to 2011, my town was a sub-headquarter of Sudan Liberation Army / movement, one of the insurgent groups who were fighting the government in the region. And for that, we've been subject to a lot of attacks. My hometown was actually a battleground in which we've been subject to about 12 attacks during the course of this, 8 years or so. It was difficult living there, waking up in the morning, and then there's a pattern of attacks that's usually happen. There's some anti-aircraft bombers and helicopter gunships, and then followed. This would be the kind of early thing that happened in the morning during almost each attack, and then followed by ground troops, normally joint Sudanese forces with the notorious Janjaweed militias. You all know that. And they always commit these very horrendous acts, and then they kill the men and boys, and they rape women, and they dump the dead bodies in the wells, so they poison the water. It's kind of a systematic pattern of actually decimating an entire race or entire people. That's an evil act, and it's very difficult to talk about, as I've said before. I just wanted to share with you one of the stories that really shaken me to my core. It's a story of a woman called Khadija. Khadija, she's a woman. She's a mom of. She's a mother of 7 kids. When her village was attacked, she had to flee for safety. She had to cross the border to Chad, where she joined others in the refugee camps. And during that attack, her husband was killed before her eyes, before the eyes of the children as well. But she managed to flee with the rest of the family, with the 7 kids. It's a kind of a journey of 2 days, going through the bushes and the desert all the way to Chad. However, in that attack, the Janjaweed militias were all over the area, and they were chasing them. And in that journey as well, one of her kids, one of the youngest kids, she used to carry out two of them, and some of the older kids, they carry others, and some of them run by themselves, the ones who get legs to do running. One of her kids got extremely tired, and he couldn't walk anymore, and he is extremely exhausted. Yet, once again, the Janjaweed militia are all over the area, they're still chasing them. Then she had to face a very kind of difficult situation. She had to make a choice, either to stay there so the kid can pick up his breath and continue the journey, or leave him behind. And that was a very difficult choice for a mom to make it. Eventually, she had to say goodbye to a very young kid, leaving him behind alive under a trunk of a tree to the monster who's coming behind, and God knows what would happen. That story is really difficult, and still it's a person that's really affected my life. And ever since I became in the United States, I always remember them. I always remember this story. Eventually, she ended up to chant with only 4 kids out of 7. 3 of them, she had to leave them behind. I know she would not leave her kids behind to save herself. She was doing that only to save the rest of the kids. But that was a very difficult choice for a mom to do that. And that's kind of an hidden nature of human being. And we as a country and as a nation, we should not allow this kind of incidents to happen in the name of humanity. But the kind of question that begs itself is, where were we as a country and as a nation, as an individual? Were we there to protect her? Were we there to say that this kind of incidents never happen again? Were we there to heal their broken cry? Now I think there's a chance, more than ever before. Now the country come together and to kind of understand this is kind of a very wonderful event where we have people from all over the country come together, trying at least to understand what has happened. This is kind of a hope, I think, as someone who comes from that region and someone who might consider himself a victim of this genocide. This one would definitely give us hope that still the conscience is alive, and still the people of Sudan really wants to understand what has happened and then to take action. However, as you all know, and as you all follow the news and what's going on, one of the basic things for the people of Darfur, they want to restore justice. And that's not just for the people of Darfur. That would be profoundly important for the people of Sudan. We need to learn from these incidents. We need to learn from this crisis so that history can teach us something that we can prevent this to happen again in the future. Yet still there are many people still debating themselves whether the president has to go and stand before justice at the International Criminal Court or not. I do think this is kind of a very kind of personal opinion. I think the only people who should determine that are the people of Darfur, because they are the ones who are hurt, they are the ones who were bombed, they are the ones who were raped, they are the ones who should have the right to determine whether that evil bastard has to go before justice or not. I think that exclusively should belong to the people of Darfur. So I always think that there's always, unless we break this kind of cycle. We've seen a lot of incidents happen in the rest of the country, in the Nuba Mountains, in South Sudan, and in Darfur. And we hope and we pray this should be the last one. The world actually if you look at the history, at the modern history, there has been a genocide in Armenia, in Yugoslavia, Serbia, Holocaust, Rwanda. Then the world and the superpower come together and vow this should not happen again. And then there is that very famous slogan, never again, but yet again, in the 21st century, the world walked again in another crisis, and that was Darfur genocide. This is, again, kind of an emphasis, and this is kind of another reminder that we have to be vigilant. We have to hold the bad evil accountable. We have to do our best to protect civilians, to not allow this to happen again. As I said, this is a wonderful opportunity for us as a nation to come together to advance our agenda. I think there is a little bit of gap of understanding of the crisis of the country. I'm talking about Sudan. The people on the ground, they have a reasonable understanding and they have heart as well to help each other. Yet I think also the elites who lead our political parties, they can always compromise and they can always work for their parties. So what is happening, what's really good about this revolution that happened now in the country is that the people on the ground are the safeguard of the revolution. They are the ones who are holding the politician accountable. They are the ones who are pushing the agenda. And also this kind of an opportunities, I think we need this kind of more of these opportunities to stick to our agenda together and to hold our politicians to do what's good for the country. And definitely, you all see what's going on in the news and the, let's say, the process of bringing peace. However, I do believe that people, once again, unless we rally, unless we organize ourselves, we will not be able to attain the peace that's helped to kind of address the needs and the desire for people to live, people like Khadija. So, if in that process we get something, it won't be because the political powers. Why? It would be because we as the people of Sudan, we are organized and force this governing power to address our agenda. We need that kind of mobilization power. Thank you very much.